Hello everyone, Ember here, and welcome back to a new video. And we're in Expanded for this one once again, and to be honest, this one is a bit of a sad one for me personally, because I was a huge fan of fairy types in the Pokemon TCG. So for those of you who don't know, fairy types were in the game, they used to be a thing. However, at the end of the Sun and Moon era, they were removed, and never to be seen again. So I hope this video ages poorly, and they'll once again add fairy types in the future. But yeah, ever since then, basically they've moved all the fairy types. So, the likes of Gardevoir and Sylveon, Clefairy, that lot, they've all been moved to psychic types, which honestly just feels a bit rough, I kind of miss them overall. And the last great fairy deck in the Pokemon TCG was a tag team known as Gardeon. So Gardeon was Gardevoir and Sylveon tag team. It had 260 HP, which was honestly pretty good for tag team standards back then. Like 280 was kind of like the highest. Like Arceus, Dialga, Palkia tag team was like the number one tag team, I guess, of the era. But that had 208 HP. So like 260 honestly wasn't that bad. And this guy did hit weakness on ADP, which is cool. So yeah, I had two attacks, Fairy Song and Keldeo Storm. Now these were both really powerful back in the day. Fairy Song says search your deck for up to 2 Fairy and attach them to your bench Pokemon any way you like, which was honestly really good at the time. And then Keldeo Storm for 2 Fairy and a Colorless does 150 damage, and you get to move any number of energy from your Pokemon to your other Pokemon any way you like. So basically, if Gardevoir and Sylveon was about to be KO'd, then you could move some energy to like another Gardevoir and Sylveon. It kind of just plays like a quad deck, pretty much. And it also meant you could set up for the ultra powerful GX attack magical miracle. Sorry, that's the name of it. So like GXs, all like the GX Pokemon had a GX move, but tag teams had this thing where like if they had additional energy attached to them, then you would get an additional effect. So for 3 Fairy, which is quite expensive, it did 200, so you could just do the flat 200 if you wanted to, once per game. But if this Pokemon has at least 3 extra Fairy attached to it, then your opponent just shuffles their hand right into their deck, which is kind of crazy looking back. Like, 6 energy is a massive commitment on one Pokemon, but, like, it was still a very powerful effect to do 200 damage, which was good at the time. And, like, it could potentially KO, like, a lot of Pokemon, especially with some modifiers. But, like, the effect of just disrupting your opponent like that was kind of crazy. But, yeah. Overall for this video, though, I just kind of wanted to do a bit of a Gardeon deck list. Like, I don't think this list is very optimal. It's definitely not what Gardeon used to look like in its entirety. Like, things have changed quite substantially. And to be honest, I don't think you can really get away with, like, crazy healing cards nowadays. Like, things such as Mallow and Lana used to be really good, like, back in the day when Gardeon was a thing. But the thing is, like, healing 120 damage just isn't as good as it used to be, because, like, back then, nothing could, do 260 damage, really, unless you're weak to a Pokemon. Like, nothing could do that kind of crazy damage. But come like the Sword and Shield era with like Zacian Vs, the Vs, the V Maxes, then the V Stars, and then finally onto the EX Pokemon of modern days, and then soon to be Mega Evolution. We've got like Mega Venusaur doing 240 damage for 4 energy, all those kind of like crazy attacks. Like those sorts of things just weren't a thing like back in the day, really. So yeah, I'm talking about it like it was 50 years ago, but it wasn't that long ago, really. But like times have changed a lot, I would say, since then. But overall, even though this deck used to be really, really good back then, I don't think it quite holds up nowadays. Like, if you go on the expanded ladder, I think you would struggle to win more games with this. Like, I've played a few games with it so far, like, it's all right, but, it's just nothing crazy. I think Pikabrom's actually aged a lot better. Pikabrom is Pikachu and Zekrom tag team. I think that deck has actually aged quite well because it still has things like Miraidon, so it got buffs over time. But fairy types are in this weird state where they're basically just locked in the era that they were legal in. And because they never got buffs over time, they're still just fairy types, basically. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame. But yeah, there's honestly nothing really released from later sets that can buff fairy types. Aside from the odd card like Bravery Charm, which is just like a good universal buff because plus 50 HP on a basic is quite nice. So, you can get your Gardeon up to 310 HP, which is cool. But aside from that, there's nothing really too crazy. If you don't know like the ins and outs of Expanded, I'll just go over a few key cards though. Green's Exploration allows you to search your deck for any 2 trainer cards, which is strictly better than Arven, which is kind of crazy, but you can only play it if your Pokemon in play have no abilities, so there is a bit of a restriction here. But Green's Exploration did see a lot of play. Energy Spinner is basically just a poor man's Earthen Vessel, depending on how you look at things. But search your deck for a basic energy card, reveal it, and put it in your hand. But if you're going second, then you get to search your deck for 3 basic energy. So it was kind of like Green's Exploration. Now, to be honest, I'm not sure if Energy Spinner was actually played in the old Gardeon decks. And to be honest, I don't think it's super good. But then again, like there wasn't much in the way of energy search in general, and like being able to greens for an energy is pretty good anyway. So that's probably why Energy Spinner got used. Also got things in here like Wait and See Hammer, which I'm pretty sure did see play in the original Gardeon list. You can only use this card if you go second and only on your first turn in the game, and you get to discard an energy from one of your opponent's Pokemon. So quite a powerful effect, really. But of course, has that turn one going second limitation. I've also got Unfair Stamp in here as an ace spec. I just want to deviate and talk about this for a second because this is basically here to represent Reset Stamp, which was a really good item card that unfortunately got banned. So because it was just too broken, like it led to some really crazy combos. I don't think it's going to let me show Reset Stamp because it got banned. So it's probably not going to... Is it going to appear here? No, okay. I definitely own Reset Stamp, so it's just not going to let me see the banned card. But yeah, Reset Stamp used to be cool, but yeah, sadly got a bit too broken, had to be banned. So yeah, Unfair Stamp, that's why we play that I spec, just a bit of a homage to it, really. Also got Big Malasada in here because like special conditions are kind of annoying these days, like Poison is really annoying in particular, but also Confusion from like Monkey Dory, so that's why I like Big Malasada. It's also just like a nice card. I like Big Malasada, it's fun. But yeah, overall, tag teams did have some crazy support back in the day, like Cherish Ball is literally just search your deck for Pokemon GX, kind of crazy looking back. Tag Switch, just move to energy from one of your tag teams to another one of your Pokemon. So that was like another cool combo with Gardeon, I guess. Is like you could Fairy Song to one of your benched ones and then just move those to energy to Gardevoir and then use Keldeo Storm and move them back if you wanted to and stuff like that. So let you set up Magical Miracle a bit easier as well. But yeah, that's kind of a deck overall. I don't think there's much else to really talk about aside from I guess Wondrous Labyrinth deserves an honorable mention because it was a pretty good Prism star. So Prisms were really cool. You could only play one copy of a Prism in your deck. So it was kind of like ace specs, except you could have multiple Prisms in your deck. You just could only play one of each, basically. So Wondrous Labyrinth was a really cool stadium, just increases attack cost of non-fairy Pokemon by 1 colorless. It honestly saw, I think, a lot of play in control decks as well, but still a very nice piece for Gardeon to have. And yeah, that's kind of it, I think, for trainers and supporters. Nothing else that's really too crazy and worth talking about. Like, I guess, yeah, Tag Call is kind of absurd. Like, it is crazy how heavy they push tag teams overall as a mechanic. But yeah, they got a lot of broken support, and it was a rough time if you're a single prize player, let me tell you. But overall, I think Gardeon was, yeah, definitely one of the better decks in the format. It's just a bit of a shame that it was the last great fairy deck in the Pokemon TCG. But yeah, let me know what you think down below. Would you like to see fairy types come back in the future? And yeah, thank you for watching.